All right, it's one. Let's hit the road.
All right, guys, I've got one on my clock as well. We are here today to talk about engaging students to become better writers. I feel like Catherine has done a good job of engaging us anyways, or maybe distracting us. I'm not sure which. Well, maybe she'll get to like a clarifying point of that later with the little puppies. But in any case, we're glad to have you guys joining us for this Rural Life Virtual Summer Institute. So welcome again to engaging students to become better writers. My name is Candace Herman, and I'm your session host. I'm here to support the session presenter, Catherine, who will introduce shortly, offer technical assistance to participants, share the session evaluation at the end, and make sure that if you have any clarifying questions in chat, I can monitor that as well. So please don't hesitate to pop in any questions or comments as we go. At this time, I'll introduce you guys to your session presenter, Dr. Catherine Edwards.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a sunny afternoon, and I'm glad you're here, and I appreciate you taking the time, and I hope that you walk away with something. And I'll probably this, do you hear feedback, John?
I do. I'm going to mute a few folks here. There you go. Try that.
Okay. And I hope that you will give us, and you'll get this opportunity and to give us, when we give you the links for your evaluation, I hope you give us real and true feedback, because this is a topic, engagement, that I really like. I've presented several times with it. I did a couple of sessions with Dr. Fillers during the school year, and I hope to kind of keep on this topic as we and work more in specific ELA curriculum like My Perspectives or Amplify or whatever. I'm kind of hoping to keep going with this school year. So if you would, I would love to know who I'm speaking to. And before we get into anything, we'll keep going, but I want you to go into chat, and I want you to give us your name, your school, and your role, your coach, administrator, teacher, middle school, whatever. And then I want some words or phrases about how you feel about teaching writing. I have teachers that I work with that say, I don't like to teach writing, or teaching writing scares me. You know, put your honest feelings, and we'll go ahead with some other slides while you're doing that. Candace?
All right, guys, so we know this lovely blue-haired girl here. There's do want to remind you just what John had kind of addressed a minute ago. If you want to mute yourself if you haven't already, that just helps with feedback. We were talking about Wi-Fi connectivity a bit ago. We would really love to see you guys if you feel comfortable turning your cameras on. I understand sometimes Wi-Fi can get a little spotty, and you know, if you have to turn it off, it is what it is. But we would love to be able to engage with you guys even visually like that, since we are having a session today on engagement. So if you don't mind to turn your camera on, we would love to see you all.
Good point, Candace. Let's stay engaged.
All right, so we were going to take a look at these session materials here in a bit, but John has done a really good job of reminding us where we can access all this material. If you guys check out just the VSI 2021 site, you'll see the schedule registration page. You can just skim to where the date is. So today is June 7th. I had to do like Brooke and literally look at what today was. It is still the 7th, yes, all day long. If you'll click on the time, so we're at 1 p.m. there. If you haven't already and you want to access those materials, you can go ahead and pull that up. But Catherine and I will be dropping some of that information into the chat as we go on.
This is just a reminder of what rural life. Candace and I both are rural life coaches. And in my background, I'm a retired English teacher, school media person, and administrator. In fact, the last 16, 17 years of my career was in some form of administration. But rural life, our goal is literacy initiative focused on effectiveness. And this is a colorful reminder of what our world is. Okay, today's objectives, they're kind of clear cut. We're going to explore 3 types of engagement, what they look like, sound like in the classroom, both in person and virtual. After the year we've had, we must address the fact that, you know, the brick and mortar schools change forever. So, and honestly, some of that is good. And we're going to be looking through the lenses of students. I found a wonderful resource that I really enjoy. We're going to reflect on the role of the teacher In defining, offering opportunities, and then supporting student engagement and improving writing. And then we're going to consider some ways to increase engagement and create better writers. And again, as Candace said, I really encourage you to chat, break in, because as an educator, I have learned so much more from other educators. So please share. And you know, there'll be some times I ask you to look at some things that didn't work out. This is not a judgmental place at all. You know, what didn't work, maybe somebody else can tell you another way to tweak it, and it will be the greatest thing you've done. All right, so what do the students say? I'm going to show you a deep dive into this. I got a book here, and this was a national study, and it's called Just Ask Us. We're going to look at a couple things about it. This was a national study done with students, and the researchers, and I put that, it's in my resources, and it's published through AMLE, which if you don't, that's a wonderful association for middle level grades. And they, by the way, are going to have a conference in Louisville in November, but their focus is middle school students. But if they ask hundreds of students, how can we keep you engaged? Well, came up with 3 different frameworks: emotional, behavioral, and cognitive. And there's a picture of the book. So these students, what did they say engages them? Well, this is broken up. They said, let us move around. And for some people, that's uncomfortable. Give us choices. Mix things up. Let us work together. Connect what we learn to the real world. Show us that you're human too. Make learning more visual. And help us create something with what we've learned. Well, as a former administrator, I can literally go back to every one of those and relate them to the team framework for teacher observation and evaluation. And then I'm going to show you just a little bit. Can you all see the article? Can I have a thumbs up if you can see this Okay, good. I want to take a few minutes. This was at one point, there was a link in the book, but that link disappeared. So the author of this book actually did this article, and it's on Edutopia. I want to take, I think, about 5 or 6 minutes, and I want you to scroll down through there and look at the explanations of these 9 things that students say. So Candace, will you start us on the time? We're going to give them, let's go about 8 minutes.
Okay, and I'm going to drop that link in here as well, just in case folks need it. All right, guys, did you say about how long do you want to give participants?
Well, let's go 7 minutes.
Okay. All right, guys, we'll give you all some quiet time to access that article. Please let us know if you have any trouble finding it, either in your materials or in chat.
Okay, Candace, I'm going to go ahead. People
Okay.
are, so again, in this book, and there is some student engagement surveys. I love the part of, there's even a classroom constitution. I just really like this book. It's a practical book that is great to have on your desk about engagement in all subjects, but I've just taken the piece about the writing because that's what I'm interested in. And the other source I use a lot is the Writing Revolution. But this book is Just Ask Us is kind of the basis of today. For some reason, John, my screen doesn't want to go on.
Just try, there you go. Just load it up again if you need to.
Hi.
Well, look at you. She's out there looking for it. She finds
Not share, present.
It's loading again. I'm hoping.
You don't want to share it, you want to present it.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So you hit the present button up there beside share.
I tell you what, while Catherine is working on that little bitty tech issue, which we knew was completely inevitable, we might be thinking
Right.
about the 3 words or phrases from before, where we asked you guys to be thinking about words or phrases you associate with engagement. If it's like on the fly engagement, maybe tech problems were part of your, I don't know, part of your response. Like, I promise you, if you ever have an evaluator come through, it's going to happen. Like, if it doesn't, like, you are just the most blessed person ever. But looks like Catherine has got this squared away for us, though.
Oh, sorry about that. So which of the 9 student responses resonates with you? I would love for you can either use chat or you can just share out, and I really like the sharing out. And then as you reflect on the 9 student engagement responses, are there any in your own practice that you want to change? Did you do a little bit of this, or did you think I never have thought about this? Please share out with me what you thought about those things that you read about.
The one I relate to the most is, and sorry, my video is not going to work with my Wi-Fi, but
That's fine.
one I relate to the most is choice, like giving students choices. I see that an option as to how they do things.
I totally agree. And there's ways to do that. And, it can come up in your differentiation plans, or I know in a lot of the new curriculum, there's lots of opportunities to differentiate. And but sometimes, that rebellious student just wants to have a choice. I agree with you that we're guilty of not always doing that. What else?
I mean, I do agree with the technology part of it. Like, you got to bring in technology. It's just getting them motivated to do technology for work. I always say that they can do everything you want when you tell them not to do it. But when you're like, okay, go online, they all of a sudden, I don't know how to log into Google.
Well, Lydia, let me give you a little answer for that. This will come up a little later. There's a big difference between revision and editing. Remind them as they create on a computer, they are really helping themselves not have to edit so much, because the computer can do a whole lot of that for them. So remind them of that. Say, but if you want to write and have deformed hands and have to go look up words, how to spell them, all those things I expect, do that. How was that? What else? Anybody else want to share something? Candace, you have anything in the chat?
Yeah, I was just looking at Richard's comment. He said, showing yourself, being human, students respond better in a personal relationship. So I don't know if maybe, I don't want to read into it, but I'm thinking about some of the conversations I've had with teachers this past year, especially when we were fully virtual or maybe even hybrid, about it's not impossible, but it is really different to try to build those relationships when you're not eyeball to eyeball, so to speak. But I really appreciate that Richard has identified that for us. Like, yeah, like kids will work for you and with you and toward their own goals that they have set if they feel like you're a human being first.
Candace, can I add on to that?
Yeah, please.
Sure.
Yeah, what I love too about that personal side is, I mean, writing is a creative process, and there's nothing like putting yourself out there in front of someone else around something you've created that makes that relationship that much more important, because it's a vulnerable place to be in. And kids know too that, oh, well, you're the teacher and you know how to write and I'm the student and maybe there's a lot I have to learn. So that only ups the anxiety probably a little bit around that too. So that resonated with me too, just the, showing yourself as being human, but also the relationship aspect of engaging and learning that's very creative, like we know writing is.
And I think that even in writing, a key to tag onto what you're saying there, Dr. Fillers, is that modeling your own process is a huge. I mean, I would dare say that there's not a person on the screen that doesn't edit their writing, go back and change it and fix it, even if it's a memo to other teachers. So this is a perfect opportunity for modeling. All right. So what is student engagement is not. Let's talk, it's not baiting a hook to trick students into writing. It's not about worksheets. It's when it's not expecting students to fill up a blank sheet and to be perfectly correct in all ways, and the sentences are coherent. There's no misspelled words. This is what it's not. But rather, student engagement is, and I had a good time with this slide. It's letting students take charge of their own learning. And that can come through personalized learning. That could come through just choice and responsibility, letting the students know that they have something to say about their writing. So how do we inspire students to write and write well? Well, we can allow our students to see themselves as authors. And this was a lot of fun to explore because this is an area that's always changing. We want to celebrate the students and their writing. When you have spent all that time grading and looking at papers and helping the students revise, you know, you want to think past it getting out, you want it to get out of their backpack, and you would even like to maybe see it go further than their mom's refrigerator. So if we can get students to view themselves as authors, you know, and get them some way to publish their work. And this has changed a lot. Schools have really come away from school newspapers and things like that because there's just so much liability, and, you know, it's just administrators don't like student newspapers. I'll just put that one right out there. And directors of schools like it even less. But what choices, how do you let your students see their work and see them, help them feel like authors? Can you tell me anything, what you can do? Anybody?
Catherine, while they think on that just a little bit, I'll pick out Brooke's comment here. She's mentioned that she's had a really positive response with her high school students in the past, particularly with narrative, whenever she's modeled that with them. And I think this is really cool, Brooke, that you're noticing. They get like the academic side of that, where you're modeling strategies, you're thinking it through, but also they see like it's okay to struggle just a little bit and really ponder over that phrase that you want to say, or with the precision of your language. And so you really are targeting all of those things that we see on that writing rubric, but we're doing it, you know, through that lens of being a human being too. So I think that's really cool. You've mentioned that, Brooke.
Yeah, thank you, Brooke. That is great. Anybody else want to, has anybody had any student work published? What did you do? How did that happen? Well,
Monica is noting that I'm sorry if I was speaking over someone.
No.
I just wanted to pick out Monica's comment, Catherine, because it's kind of in response to your question. She's looking for national contests, and she encourages her students to enter those. So sometimes you guys get those in your email, guys. Honestly, like I was so bad about like, I'll read this like in a minute. So like Monica, or Mona, I'm so sorry, Mona. Thank you, Mona, for one, being patient with my mispronunciation, but also for being really attentive to those opportunities for student publication.
I love you, man. Sorry. I have kids hanging on me as I'm trying to do this. I don't do this, but another teacher at my school uses NaNoWriMo. If you're familiar with that program.
No,
it's like
I'm not.
It's like National Novel Writing Month, and it's I think it's in November every year, but they have a program that you can use year round, and they can actually go on and like publish, and it tells them their word count, and it tells them like how close they set a goal for a number of words and things like that. So I don't think you were speaking over. If I unmuted by accident, I have kids. Oh, sorry, that was a direct message. Sorry. But yeah, NaNoWriMo is something
You're busy.
I've seen
It's
people
fine.
use. It's okay. I have a 3-year-old
Thank
trying
you
to
for
pull
that.
my headphone out of my ear right now. Okay.
Understand. And I didn't know that, but I might offer here another source. Now, a lot of ELE teachers know about this, but if you don't, this is a wonderful place for some ideas about publishing. It's the National Writing Project, okay? And can you share that link, Candace? That way I won't mess up my screen again.
And yeah, I can do that for you.
Okay, is it up yet?
It is now.
Okay, do you see, and I'm not looking, I'm doing this from memory, but do you see there is some, this is a wonderful K through 12 publication. But of course, like all good teachers, you can take things that are below grade level or above grade level and tweak them. But you'll find some good sources here for publishing, for different ways to look at activities. I think this is the one where it's let students write a novel in 30 days. You talk about students being proud of something. That could maybe be adjusted, adapted a little bit to some bell work or some quick writes, or maybe go along with your ELA curriculums. Take these ideas and adjust this. If you've never seen this, this is a source well worth getting signed up on and looking at. National Writing Project. And again, as if you are an ELA teacher or administrator, share these resources with all of your subject matter.
Catherine, Lydia's got a question about this resource, and if you are aware if it can be used for any other subjects other than ELA.
Oh yeah, I've seen them have topics on different things, writing opportunities on different subjects, math, science, social studies. Yes, I have seen that. So, and it's worth looking at.
Hey,
And
Catherine. Oh, go
yeah.
ahead. I would just say that, I think sometimes we think about publishing writing and we go to the big types of publishing, like put it in a book or put it
Yeah.
out there for the whole world to see. But I mean, publishing writing can also just include, it's more than just my teacher and me and my mom kind of looking at my material. I think even in the classroom, I've seen teachers do fabulous work that's tied to publishing, or that idea of putting my work out there for others on classroom discussion boards, or things that are more that are a little more low key than like putting it in a book that gets binded and
That's
put on the
true.
shelf, that kind of publishing.
Yeah.
So there's even things where you have students do things on Padlet or on other types of discussion board type situations, or sharing things with their peers would be considered publishing, because it's more than just between me and the teacher or me and my parents. It's now my words to others, and having a chance to share that.
That's wonderful, Bethany. And actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually just almost think that we take some of that for granted, and we're not stretching ourselves to think in terms of what the students can do.
Yeah, like classroom blogs. I've seen some teachers use some
yeah.
fantastic classroom blogs. I mean, or even more national blogs, but it's not the traditional publishing like we might think it to be.
Well, in that periodical, there's some really good blogs, and I'm also going to show a teacher here that has a really great blog to share. But another thing we can do to encourage kids to write and become better writers is give them permission to make mistakes. I alluded a minute ago to the fact that, do you really expect your students at any age, even high schoolers, even yourself, to have a blank piece of paper or a screen in front of you and everything just turn out perfectly? No, the answer to that is no. And that is a problem with students, because they don't like to edit. They don't like to revise. They want to write it. Listen, I know students won't even really go back and reread it themselves. So that's such a wonderful idea for peer editing and things, because as with us, when you read your own work, it makes sense. But when you read out loud to somebody else, it's slowing the brain down, and you're picking up the mistakes and things like that. So, we need to teach our kids grit about writing, our students, just like we need to. Do you, and again, I said, do you want them to, that very first draft, to be perfectly spelled and ideas coherent? It's not going to happen. And so you need to raise the bar as classroom people and say, this is the first draft. This is what I like about it, and then try to send them back. Often when I was an administrator, English teachers especially were so guilty of griping about how much night work they did. And it's true. But I said, have you ever thought about stretching the work out a bit and not assigning so many different new pieces? Instead, let the students stay with their paper for a while, whatever they're writing. Bring it back, you look at it, you give it back, they share with each other. There's nothing, as long as they're writing, it doesn't mean there has to be a new essay once a week or anything. Be kind to yourself on that. And you want, and this is kind of controversial, even with the coaches themselves. We've talked about this a little bit. As I said earlier, encourage your students to write and edit on computers. I know that some of you have, it's really hard to read student writing. Be kind to your eyes. But there's so much of the editing and mistakes and things that can be taken care of on a computer. And frankly, the world that our students are coming up in, they're going to be using technology to write. Notepads and things are still great for ideas and annotation and things like that, but encourage here.
Hey, Catherine, I'll do a shameless plug to our feedback session. We have a feedback session that's later on in the week, Thursday, I believe. But, we don't have to give feedback on everything, every single assignment, right? So getting really focused with your feedback and let that spiral over the course of the year is also a way to limit how much, like you were saying, being kind to ourselves as educators, that we don't feel like we have to grade every essay for every single thing out there in our standards or in the English language.
And that brings me to another point. Be specific with your students about what you are looking for. And I know maybe you're not going to blatantly pass up something else, but if you're looking for that topic sentence, or if you're looking, and then if you're working through some grammar issues, say I'm looking for participle phrases and things like that. As hard as it is on you, only do that so that the students will know, and just keep that work going. And then, the difference between revision and editing, there is a difference. I have a friend in Carter County Schools who is a middle school teacher, and I heard her say to her students, revision is when the big changes, you're changing, maybe you're changing where paragraphs are, you're changing the direction you're going to go. Editing is about cleaning up in those little things. So make sure your students, make sure you understand the difference between revision and editing, and that'll help the students have some clarity. I included this. If you're an ELA teacher, you know about this. It's where the exemplar papers are. This is the rubrics for different kinds of writing: narrative, explanatory, and argumentative. I can't say enough about, upper elementary, middle school, and high school. These rubrics should be printed. You should have them on the wall. The kids should know that that's, as you revise, I'm not going to say grade, as you revise, that you're looking at these. If they've written a narrative, this is what you're looking for. And explanatory, explain the number system. And then also in your teams, your school teams, if you're on a team with social studies and science and math, and, make sure that they know these rubrics, because they are expected to have some writing. It's on it when they're observed and evaluated. That's very much part of the evaluation process. Plus, as our state testing, all subjects have some writing component. So share these rubrics with other people in your school, and the students will have some continuity about it. So those links, when you go back in your materials, the links are behind those. And it's, ELA teachers, we shouldn't keep the joy to ourselves. So here's some strategies to engage students. And I want to, how are we doing on time, Candace?
I'm at 1:30, so we've got plenty of time.
Okay, so let's look at, I'm going to work with this just a little bit. You see strategies to engage students. This is part of this comes from a wonderful instructor, and he was a middle school ELA teacher, and then he went into, he's a professor now, but his name is John Spencer, and he has blogs, and he has just a wonderful site. If you're looking for ideas, the link down there is the article where I got most of this from, but I'm going to give you kind of the cliff notes of it. But again, if you check out, you can go ahead and post that link if you want to. You start with voice and choice for students. Let's make the topic interesting to our students. When you ask students to write on something, do they have the background knowledge that they need? Let's not assume anything. And let's give them the opportunity to shine. If they have an expertise in some area, let's give them that opportunity to shine. And again, when we allow students to feel good about themselves, they're going to be more likely to want to share their work, publish, whatever that looks like in your classroom. And I contend that all my years that students like to share with each other, and they like to share with you. Let's find students to find an authentic audience. Well, sometimes students are reluctant because they see the whole writing process is irrelevant. And I'm touching on, this is kind of a thing here. I hope I'm not touching on any toes, but students will spend a lot of time on writing, you hope, but it may take weeks for some of them to get it back. And I know we teachers, we have lives, and there has to be some lag time. It cannot be instantaneous. But as you're planning and as you're working towards keeping students engaged in writing, when they don't get any feedback for weeks, you've probably unraveled any engagement that you had. Again, publish, if you can get that work published, finished up and published. I saw, has anybody ever heard of a strategy called Geek Out blogs? This is what Bethany was talking about when you have in-school, in-class blogs and things like that. Actually, it's kind of cool. The word geek is kind of cool. And if it's used correctly, you don't want to call somebody that, but, kids kind of think it's great to be considered if they had a Geek Out blog where they could submit their writing, things like that. And John Spencer talks a lot about that. And then embrace the image. And at first I didn't really understand what he was talking about, but you will see where a lot of effective teachers in writing engagement use video. They use pictures to get kids to inspire, to create. They encourage students to journal, to write down their thoughts. And of course, we all know this is a wonderful bell ringing activity. I saw a teacher I thought this was really effective. She did offer some journaling opportunities for students where they could write anything they wanted. Some students were not so comfortable with that. So about half the time, she would give them a specific topic to journal on. Sometimes, more times than not, she related it back to maybe what they were working in their ELA curriculum. I've seen science teachers and history teachers especially use journaling and maybe give some kind of piece of something they've talked about, maybe a controversial topic, maybe something from history, and they framed it in such a way to kind of get the kids to grab on and be interested and journal about it. And for some students, their journal may be pictures. It may be a sketch pad. That's okay too. Consider it a kind of a private playground for writing. And it may not look like yours and it may not look like everybody else's, but if you can get students to get some thoughts down on paper, you're well on your way on engaging them. Connect it to the world. I think that reluctant writers are reluctant because they don't see the writing process as important. They think writing is irrelevant. Have you ever thought about it that way? if you, and I'm going to use the example that John Spencer did because I thought it was just so clear. So let me just share this. If you write an essay describing the causes of World War I, it might seem irrelevant to them. There's no controversy, no conflict, no impact, no connection to the world. But let's contrast this. If you ask, could we have another world war? Or is Europe poised for another world war? Well, when they write, they not only have to show you that they know the causes for World War I, but they get to put in their own opinion and then try to back it up with facts and research. So how you poise and phrase things that you ask the kids to write about is very important. And of course, you know, with the internet, there's such a huge amount of online research, and we have to have the talk with them about validity of their sources. But that's okay. That's okay. That's part of the learning. Now, make scaffolds optional. All right. So sometimes I think students are reluctant and struggle as writers because they don't really know how to get started. I mean, there's nothing more intimidating than that blank piece of paper or that blank screen. And so we as teachers, we're giving them scaffolds, we're giving them prompts, we're using graphic organizers. And that's a great way to help students write. But are we, and again, I hope I don't make anybody uncomfortable, I think students, as I reflect back and the things I've seen and the things I've done, I think sometimes we've helped our students have a learned helplessness. They don't move past their own fears, their own frights. They depend on us to scaffold it or give them a prompt. So, you know, back it up, help students know how to start themselves. This was a topic that I thought would be a whole presentation in itself. You want to use this process to help students learn how to scaffold their thoughts and their structures and their research in a way that helps them. You know, you have a way when you're told to write something, you need to share your process, but make sure your students know that your process might not be their process. I think graphic organizers for writing are probably one of the best things going, but don't teach your students to be helpless. Don't teach them. Don't let them be helpless. You give them that kick in the butt to get them going again. And then write more often. Part of our standards require us to write routinely, I think is the wording, over extended time. That's an all standards K-12 in some way or the other. Well, and we know students need grit and endurance. And writing teachers have often told me, and I see it, that their students don't have grit. As I mentioned earlier, they want to write it down one time, hand it in, and they're done. They're ready to move on. Well, we're not being fair to our students if we don't teach grit and endurance about, well, you got this part right, but we need to work on this part. Any questions on that? Do you all agree with me that sometimes we overhelp our students? Has anybody got anything to say about that? Candace, do you think that this is an issue that we can kind of overdo, prompting and helping kids get started?
I will say I have seen some really exceptional teachers this past year do some self-reflection, and they've seen that they want to protect kids a lot of times from that pit of struggle where you feel like you get a little stuck, especially in writing. And it's a very difficult thing, especially when we're educators because yeah, we like our content, but we love our kids first, for presumably, but I've seen a lot of teachers reflect on that this past year. They've had a difficult time pulling back and just giving kids the time and space to kind of grapple with the text and with the task. They're not throwing them into the deep end, but they're just giving them a chance to think upon what is it that you're seeing from this text that you want to reflect upon, that you want to create some original thought from. And sometimes it's hard to give kids that time and space. Yeah, we do want to over support a lot of times. I'm very guilty of that. myself.
And because we care, we care for them. And then make it fun. And I made this an actual link. Candace, will you load that? Now this is from John Spencer. He has a blog. And this is a great writing resource and a good way to engage kids. Candace, can you put that link out there? This is a very short video. I want you to see something and get some of your all's feedback on it.
Do you want to make writing fun?
Yeah, make it fun.
Yeah, I can pull that. There's you may have to look for it a little bit in the chat, but there is from this whole article that Catherine had mentioned just a little while ago from this same source.
John Spencer.
Yeah, it's up in the chat as well. But in the chat, most recently, you'll see that link to the video that she's referencing.
Okay, can we pull that up? Can we see that video?
If you want to show that, you can since you're presenting, you can click on that hyperlink.
All right, okay, just help me get back if I need to.
Okay, no problem.
All right, how to create a to-do list for a supervillain on their day off. Okay, that sounds silly to us, but that would certainly catch the attention of some of our students.
What do you think Darth Vader does on his day off? Perhaps he gets a slushie from Hot. Maybe he takes his cape to get dry fit, or he goes to the pharmacy to pick up a new inhaler. Maybe he has some me time at the spa, followed by some hot yoga. Or maybe he just binge watches the Golden Girls. Or does he play a vigorous game of pickleball? You're going to create a to-do list for a villain who has a day off. Think of things that make a villain seem more human, or maybe even boring. Be sure to make it realistic, keep it specific, and make it awesome.
And I'll let that play on through because
Jimmy collects toy dinosaurs.
John Spencer is, hang on, let me turn it off. John Spencer is certainly worth following, and he will give you some great ideas for writing. And he actually talks about how he wants his students to fall in love with writing as he is in love with writing. And he talks about his struggles that he had with his own middle school age son. And I just thought that was just a lot of fun. So integrate into larger projects, okay? How many of us, well, when we're talking about writing, we may have a goal in mind for the students. It may end up being a research paper that's going to be this, this, and this, and this. But I think sometimes, and especially with middle school and early high school, and maybe even of early upper elementary, that, we don't need to be telling them that it's going to be, in the end result, it's going to be like this. Let's help them let it grow. Let's look at what we're writing about, what we're talking about, and then let's help them chunk it and scaffold it, whatever it takes to make it into a bigger project. Let's see. And then this is a good point for a good place to talk about differentiation. So, you've got students, you're going to have this writing project, and you may even be talking with a team of teachers, and you say, we're going to have this big writing project. And then, but what about those special kids? What about the IEPs, the students there, or just, so what about if they did something fun like a maker project, and then they had to write the directions out specifically instead of writing a huge paragraphs and things. There's not any reason in the world that all students can't be working towards the same end, but they may get there differently. And I really, really like this thought, because we know that we can't have the same expectations for all students. We as teachers just have to figure out what our expectations are for each student and help them to get there. And then there's also, this is a good place for maybe putting students together, doing a little bit of team teaching, team editing, and team writing with each other. there's all kinds of possibilities here. If you want to inspire a reluctant writer, you should integrate writing into all projects, all subjects. Let's face it, there's a lot of our students that are sitting in ELA classes, they don't get, they really don't care. But that science teacher or that math teacher, they have the ability to really turn them on. So if you are an ELA teacher and you care about writing, make sure that your team of teachers around you know that you care about writing. All right, and then teach students the strategies for getting unstuck. Well, that one kind of goes back into what I talked about a little earlier, that sometimes we scaffold too much. We teach our students how to be helpless. What do you do when the students get stuck? Do they know how to get unstuck? There's some wonderful ideas on YouTube links for this, but we've got to teach our students how to push through the writing, how to get to the end. How does anybody here, when a student gets stuck, does anybody have any really great ways that you get them over the hump and get them writing? And it doesn't matter if you're an ELA teacher. Who has some ideas about how to get students to push through? Anybody? Any chat? Is there any chat, Candace?
Yeah, maybe. Do you care to maybe rephrase that for us?
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm looking for some strategies from teachers to share with other teachers when students get stuck. How do you help them get unstuck?
Okay, and that probably gave some folks a little time to chime in. I see Stephanie has mentioned that collaborating with other students, that might give them a time. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes you don't really know what you want to write. You kind of talk your way to clarity a lot of times, and that's true for kids as well. Mona allows them to ask each other students for ideas, and so that might kind of piggyback on the suggestion that Stephanie had dropped in here as well.
I like the idea too of teachers and students collaborating. Now, you don't have time for, a meeting with each student, but, have them, they have your email address, or they have a way to get to you. Ask them to maybe frame what their problem is and get it to you, where you all just have this one-on-one personal conversation, either through technology or even person to person. Maybe, it could be a ticket out the door. I'm stuck, get them to leave where they're having a problem. And of course, if you see the same problem popping up in more than one student, then, you need to think, well, maybe I'm the confusing person there, just like Candace had me reframe. It was perfectly clear in my brain what I wanted, but Candace helped me reframe it and made it clear.
Hey, Catherine, I'll just add, writing is the most difficult of all literacy tasks. I think I heard someone say once that you can't write about what you don't know about, right? So providing opportunities for kids to talk with one another, and like Candace was saying, just talk it out sometimes is helpful, but also just getting back into where that information was that I'm supposed to be pulling from, so that then I have something to say in my writing. So that could be back to the text, or back to a video that I was asked to watch, or back to whatever the resources were to help me build enough knowledge so that I then have something to say. There's that type of stuck versus the stuck on like mechanical things, like the editing that you were talking about.
That's good. That's really good. And then share your writing journey. Well, John Spencer, this is not an original thought, but I really want to give him credit for thinking like this, because he says, if the students see in us a joy in writing and sharing, we're going to help the students have some of that same joy. And it begins with you as the teacher. When you share your passion, your stories, and give examples and how you struggle, students realize that, well, you're going to help them realize that writing is a lifelong skill. And, there's a mentoring process in writing. However, there really is value in having that real life person talk about their own struggles. And this is a little bit off the subject, but I see Scott Jones. I've been looking at his picture today of him holding this fish, and I'm jumping here, but can you imagine what a classroom could do with that picture if you were even just trying to get them to write, give them ideas? I know from teaching and being an administrator in some rural schools that picture would really speak to some of my students. And so, Scott, you've got a platform right there just using your picture. But anyway.
Yeah, if I can jump in just a second, I apologize for the picture only. I've been taking my mother to an eye surgery today, but you're exactly right. And I think that the more you can tap into personal experiences with students, even if they have quote unquote limited experiences, any experience that they have that they can personalize and write about makes it meaningful, even if it's imaginative.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And you could even take your picture, Scott, and make it a funny picture. Or you could ask the question, did he throw, and this is coming off the top of my head, did he keep it or did he throw it back? Students would really relate to that. I've had to.
If the game warden is asking, I threw it back.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And where's your life jacket? No, and I've had my share of deer hunting pictures too over the years, but and I could care less about that. But with students with limited experiences, that was their experiences. And I've learned a lot about my students through those kinds of things. So Scott, thank you for that. I appreciate that. But anyway, I would encourage you to look at this article and follow Scott Jones because he's got a lot of interesting things to say and a lot of blogs and a lot of things on YouTube. So I want you to take a picture of this because I'm going to ask you some questions. You've seen this before. This is back from what the students say about what engages them, okay? We went over that. What students say keeps them engaged from that national study I told you about. So take a picture of that. I'm going to count to 10. Remember, this was the 3, the behavioral, emotional, and the cognitive. And yes, the cognitive is more challenging. So what opportunities, this is, I'm going to use the triangle, square, and the circle. So think in terms, what opportunities for student engagement with writing do you already see in your current curriculum? That could be in your new ELA series. Are you giving students time to write? How important is it if you're not an ELA teacher? How are you looking at it as an important piece of your world in the classroom? So, a triangle, write down 3 important points about engagement while teaching writing. What do you think? And if you can just do this in chat or share with us, what are 3 important points about teaching writing that you think? Is it going to help them be a lifelong learner? I'm already giving you 1. You come up with 2 more. You can refer back to those 9 points that I asked you to take a picture of.
Lydia has noted that it helps them communicate their ideas effectively.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and they're going to need that. We all know that as adults, functioning adults, they're going to need that. They're going to have to, it's through writing that I think that students will learn how to be critical thinkers when they have to, whether it be, if they're choosing who they're going to vote for, or if they're, what job is better, or whatever, they've got to have a process of creating and putting down their own ideas. But on the list of 9, anybody else got anything else that really, that you feel like it's important about the writing process in the student's life? Yeah. Okay, so let's do the square. Write down or chat or say anything that squares with your thinking or anything you agree with. What on that list of 9 do you think? Yeah, I really agree with that. Anybody?
Oh, I have to take this opportunity to pull Judy's comment out here.
Okay.
Judy, in order to write, you have to know. This kind of goes back to what Bethany was suggesting earlier about you have to build that knowledge. You have to have something, in fact, to say, which again, like she had mentioned, going back to your text or whatever your media maybe is. So often we're asking students to write about things with little experience. So we need to make it more personal. Yeah, like a lot of times they're not being belligerent. They're not being, not smart. They simply they don't know what it is they think about the thing because they've not built enough knowledge about the thing yet. So yeah, that's an excellent point of giving them some opportunities. Richard is echoing this as well. You can be a smart person with solutions, but if you can't communicate it, you're just kind of building those intellectual calories and not burning them off by sharing that out. Oh my gosh, Catherine, I don't know if you can see it, but you've got some people with some really observant comments through here. Lydia says, show the students that you're human too. Lydia, this really resonates with me as well. Kids, when they see what it really is, the writing struggle, the writing process, that good writers don't just write something beautiful the first time. It gives them a little bit of hope and they think, oh, if this adult who has all these degrees is working on this, then I guess it's okay for me as a young person, as a student, to work on this. Yeah, Mona says it's okay to make mistakes. Writing is a process. It takes time. So I like that we have the opportunity in these new curricula that we have to keep revisiting that writing, that it's extended for that reason. It's not a one and done. A lot of times a cool, innovative thought that you have, like it's not done after you have to kind of revisit, cultivate it, think about, again, like everyone has said today, how in fact you want to communicate that. Yeah, you guys, I think they just needed a minute to crank out those texts or those comments in chat.
Well, and there again, if we were in person to person, we'd be sitting there and it would be easier too. But those are wonderful comments, and I just believe with all my heart that students have abilities. I do believe that all students can do things and all students can learn. And as teachers, we've got to inspire them. How can they write? And how can we teach them to put their thoughts down? And again, ELA teachers, you've really got to get out there and promote this with your colleagues. I used to get so upset when I was a high school administrator at certain disciplines, like my CTE teachers say, I'm not a writing teacher. Well, I shared rubrics with them and said, you can do this. And I would take writing samples from different teachers and say, and I would try to walk them through the process because they actually knew more than they thought they did. And I didn't want that. If they're saying that and if they're feeling like that, they're going to convey that thought and feeling to students. And we don't want that. So the last part of this, write down anything that is still circling in your head or questions that you have. I would love for you to put this in chat or in your evaluation, because as I said earlier, I would like to keep going on with engagement throughout the year. We've done writing, we've done about teacher students. I mean, I'm talking about some of the things we did last year and some of our other work, teacher engagement, student engagement. So I really want what's something that you want to know more about, or any questions that you have or anything that you're unclear about. And if you put your name, we'll try to get back with you, but also we'll look at this in the big picture. So I'll give you about 45 seconds to do that. And Candace, if you'll share when you see some things.
I sure will.
We're almost through.
I see Lydia's comment, how to create different choices for assignment. First, thank you for just kind of having that mindset here. We want to try to personalize this and individualize for kids. And that's super hard when you're like, I don't know, it was hard enough to come up with like the first option. So I noticed, I can't speak universally to it, but I noticed in the curriculum that the district that I'm serving, that they use, I noticed on their flex days that there is, I hate to get cliche and say plethora, but like there is loads of different writing assignments that are available. And I see even within the curriculum that I'm referencing now, a lot of times it's even it's differentiated, which I know is not the same thing as personalized, but if kids are given the option of choosing, it kind of feeds into that. So I see that in the Amplify curriculum that I've been working with, but I know we have lots of different curriculum represented. So maybe to kind of if anyone wants to respond to Lydia's comment, like, how do you get like more options? Are they there? I don't know. Are they there in the curriculum that you guys have?
Well, and I actually kind of thought in terms of some work that the coaches that we've done in this spring and will continue this summer. I really think that engagement in our different ELA curriculum is an area that we really all ought to have a talk about and help each other and share with. So, and reach out to a coach, watch for more work from Niswonger Rural Life, and Candace, plug your session.
Yeah, I had noticed earlier, Catherine, you were mentioning just literacy, just kind of a writing across the board. I can't remember what. Chat has been busy, guys. Let me just tell you, like, we've gotten like at least as much done in chat as we have in like verbally here. But yeah, I've got a session coming up on Friday for literacy across content areas. And so I'll be addressing that. Catherine had talked about the standards earlier. Like, yeah, we have literacy standards in math, guys. Like, what? Like, yes, what does literacy look like in math in a real way? Like, we're not going to ask kids to write 5-paragraph essays because that's not really what mathematicians would do. So if there are any of you guys that are in this session and you feel like you could contribute to that conversation, like, I don't claim to be an authority on every single subject area. Like, I'm not that Renaissance woman, but I'm super interested in hearing what you guys have to say about it. So yeah, literacy.
When is your session?
It's 10:30 on Friday. And I will actually be hosting that feedback or faux session that Bethany had referenced earlier on Thursday. I think it's at 10:30 as well. And that's Linda's session. I've looked at her slides and guys, they are exceptional. They are engaging. I was excited to see that as well, because yeah, feedback kind of as it goes along with writing, it's intimidating. If writing a paper is intimidating to kids, providing that timely, actionable feedback, it is absolutely overwhelming to educators. So yeah, join us on Thursday for feedback if you're able to.
That it all ties together. We just want our students to be better lifelong learners and better people through what they can learn.
Hey, Catherine,
Yeah.
I want to respond to Sarah Reimer's question about how can we make it more authentic, taking things we do in our curriculum and having them shared in authentic places, a blog, that kind of thing. Tracy's session this morning around making SEL practical and those connections to our curriculum. If you didn't get a chance to join us, the recording will be posted soon. Talked a lot about looking at the CASEL framework, which is Google CASEL, or maybe Candace, you can drop that link in the chat. But thinking about what are we seeing in the text that we're reading in any classroom, and how does it relate to larger society, and then finding avenues of sharing out regarding those aspects. So especially, socially, there's so many things out there. Authentically for students, it's not about necessarily finding a real national forum, but there are some neat resources through some of the teen texts like Teen Tribune, and what are some of the other ones that are like the national writing or national newspapers and magazines that have like a teen audience. Tribune is one of them that I can think of that has some spinoffs.
And I showed them the National Writing Project.
Exactly.
K-12.
Other avenues there, but making those connections back to society at large.
Yeah. Well, we really don't have time for this last activity, but I hope that you will think of, I'm just going to frame it here. Think about as you journal this summer and get ready for the fall, as you write and journal, yes, and as you engage yourself, think about practices that you want to stop because they maybe are not encouraging student engagement. And then think about, after you go back and look at some of these resources that I've offered and others that you know about, think about what do you want to include in your class. And that's not just ELA, but what do you want to include in your classes? And, this morning I heard one of my colleagues thank the teachers for what they had done this year, and that really touched me. So it's not an original thought, but thank you for what you did this year. And thank you for caring enough to be here today. And Candace, I'll turn over the last part to you. We're done. And please feel free to reach out to me if you need me for anything or whatever. Candace?
All right, I will go ahead and take just a minute to drop this survey here. I'm not sure if you're on that next slide just yet or not, but while I'm working on that, I just want to thank you guys for showing up today, allowing me to engage with you guys, like again, both verbally and in chat. I think that's kind of like maybe kind of echoes some of the personal aspects of this. Some of us are more comfortable unmiking, and those some others of us like just like want to like type away paragraphs in chat. So thank you guys for joining us today. We do ask that you take just a minute or two to complete this survey. We really do look at these. This isn't just a check, we did it. We look at this and we let what your responses and what your reflections are inform our next move. So thank you guys for taking the next couple of minutes to take care of that. And this will also give you the opportunity to receive a certificate if you need that for your points or just for some PD credits over the summer as well.
Thank you so much. And Scott, I hope you catch a lot of fish. I'll hang around if anybody wants to talk or ask anything for a few minutes. Thank you, Bethany and Candace.
Yes, I hope to catch fish too. Thank you. And I'll release them.